Fight fans, fight fans, fight fans. This is Kurt DeVille with Counter Punch Boxing News. And, I want to talk more about, I had to go into work, but I wanted to, bring up a few more points about this press conference that we witnessed between Wilder and Fury. Now, this was a Wilder and Fury conference, but of course, it trickled into the conversation about Anthony Joshua, where we all know that Deontay Wilder went off, okay? We got that established. It's just to go in depth about that conversation, about that press conference, about that interview. Deontay Wilder is upset. He's still pissed off. And his demeanor is when you mention Joshua. He's just, it's real bitter. You know what I mean? And I think, man, and I was like, well, why is this guy so pissed off about that fight not happening? He spent a lot of himself because, I just recently listened to another interview and he went in depth on that. And I want to talk about that also. But back to the interview, he was pissed off and he waited months and spent a lot of himself. And, and then this new interview, he stated that, the rematch clause. He said that, let me get this right of how he said it. He said that Eddie Hearn and Joshua wanted a rematch clause. But he said that if Anthony wins, this is what he said. He said if Anthony wins, he gets a rematch clause. And if he loses, he gets a rematch clause, meaning Anthony Joshua. And then he said, if I lose, I don't get a rematch clause, but we're both champions. So why does he get a rematch clause and I don't get a rematch clause? So he gets a rematch clause if he wins, and he says, well, they didn't agree to a rematch clause. So that was really, and he said it wasn't about the money. Okay. I'm going to leave the source below and I want you guys to take a look at this interview because he clearly said, I think he meant to say, if Joshua loses, he gets a rematch clause. But he said if Joshua wins, he gets a rematch clause. So I want you guys to look at this video. I'm going to post it below and it's going to show the whole video. Okay. And I want you guys to take a look at it and get back with me to let me know what he meant or what you think he meant. Because the way he explained it, he said, if Anthony Joshua won, he gets a rematch clause. If Deontay Wilder loses, he doesn't get one. And that was really the big hang up because he said it wasn't all about the money. But I don't know how true that is. If it had to be something about the money because that was one of the hang ups. Now it's this, you know what I mean? That the rematch clause, because the initial deal was if he beats Joshua, Joshua gets a rematch, and then the amount of money that Joshua would receive in this fight, he would get if he wins, But Deontay was like, he stated that it was supposed to be for a 2-fight deal. So he stated that they didn't agree to the rematch clause. And the only time that they will get one if Joshua wins or loses. And I was like, well, if he won, why would he need a rematch clause? Because he won. That made no sense to me. But again, I think Deontay would have, I get dyslexic at times. So I say things that I really mean the opposite. You know what I'm saying? But I think he meant to say, if Joshua loses, he gets a rematch clause versus him not having one. Well, to break that down, that's simple. That's a part of being the A side. That's just negotiations. Oscar De La Hoya had it with Mayweather. Oscar De La Hoya had a rematch clause. Mayweather did not have a rematch clause. That's one of the things that's normal in the sport of negotiations with promoters that knows what the hell they're doing anyways. That's one of the part of having the A side. Another example, rematch clauses go, all Mayweather fights, he had an immediate rematch if he lost. That's just smart business. So he can't really get pissed off at that at the end of the day. I just didn't understand his answer. Now, he said it wasn't all about the money. Well, it had something to do with the money. We have to say that, you know what I mean? Because I have to disagree with that, because it had to be something about the money, because you were complaining about a rate that he wasn't getting, that it's been lowered, like the lowest amount that he ever got, and he compared himself to other fighters that Joshua fought. But he failed to realize that all the money that anybody ever fought Joshua, this would make sense if the guys that Joshua fought made more money than him. You see what I'm saying? But he made it a thing of him and his value. So it was about the money. And then you can't say it's not all about the money. Well, it had to be something about it, okay? Because he brought up his value, his worth. That's what he said. Well, my value, my worth. And he came to me making fights, and they made me do all these hula hoops and run through the hula hoops. You know what I mean? And the thing is, I think it came down to his pride, you know, his ego, and really his team. You know, I think his team was the reason he didn't get that fight with Anthony Joshua, because his team pretty much priced him out, and he went along with it. And he's agreeing with his team. He's honoring his team. He's loyal to his team, his management team. And I think his management team failed him. I think that, because what happened when Deontay Wilder says, I agree to terms, and he didn't sign that damn contract, it was already too late, because the A side had already decided to do negotiations with Perfected, you know. So that's what happened with that. That's what I believe that happened. So by the time he said that, but then, you know, hey, I ain't signing a contract because there's no date and there's no venue. You know, we all know that. They didn't even they just recently had a date and a venue for the fight that he was in, and didn't have one on the contract or none of that. You know what I'm saying? That wasn't, so if he's bringing up the reason for having a rematch clause, if that was his big hang up, and the flat fee, or the flat rate, it was more money than they ever offered any other fighter. It's just, it looked better because those other fighters got a percentage, but the percentages wasn't the same amount of money that he would have been receiving. So it was a certain kind of percentage, but it was under 20%, which that is kind of low. That is kind of low. But the thing is, knowing that if it was a 2-fight deal in place already, or he gets the rematch, Deontay had to believe in himself enough to know that I'm going to knock this guy out because I have to. And that's how it is. You look at the Canelo fight. Canelo can't win a decision. So it was a slight chance that Deontay would win a decision in Britain. Let's just keep it real. He would have to knock out Joshua in order to get those same concessions in a rematch. And that was to be the reason he got a rematch. And I doubt what he said, if Joshua won, he would get a rematch. It would be no reason for a rematch if he won. It would just be, okay, on to the next. Let's fight Fury now, or whatever, or White again, or Ortiz maybe. You know what I mean? He did. Now, what he did say about Luis Ortiz, he was the only one that beat him, and that, you know, and then they just discredit him for beating Luis Ortiz. And a lot of people did. They brought up the blood pressure medicine and stuff, his age, and he said Luis Ortiz is 39 years old. However, I never criticized Deontay Wilder, never, for beating Ortiz because of his age. I think Deontay fought him a little late because, you know, but, and again, in age and in heavyweight boxing really don't matter. You know what I mean? For one. For two, Luis Ortiz, I never brought up the blood pressure thing because that's, you know what I mean? That's petty, because he did beat Luis Ortiz. No one else wanted to fight this guy. But then he said, if you beat Ortiz, you'll get closer to fighting me. Well, I doubt that, since everyone's avoiding Ortiz except you. So no, it won't. You know, I mean, the guy is avoided for a reason, you know, and he showed you why he was avoided, because he gave you problems, you know, Deontay Wilder. So, but for them to say, oh, he's 38 years old, he mentioned in the post press conference after the Ortiz fight, they asked him, how do you think Ortiz is? He said, you'll never know. And he smiled. You know what I mean? So he was going along with, he might be a lot older, because Cubans tend to lie about their age when they're coming over to this country. You know what I mean? So that is a contradiction. You know what I mean? I have to add that. I have to explain, you know, if I'm going to call you out on whoever you are, I'm going to call you out on it. So he did say, well, you will never know how old he really is. But now he was like, okay, well, no, he's 39 years old, But Klitschko was 41 years old, okay? Vladimir, when he fought Joshua. So, so he would be 2 years younger than Klitschko, and Klitschko was still a major threat, and he gave Joshua a problem. So I don't think age is that big of a factor at that time, because, both of those guys, Ortiz and Klitschko, had skill at the end of the day. They were dangerous, they could punch, and they were there, and they were a serious threat. But again, you guys tell me what you think about this interview that I'm going to leave the link below, and tell me what you think about it, because I think what he said didn't really make sense. But I don't know. I want you guys' perspective, because, it's all about the comments. It's all about you guys. It's not really about me. We're discussing this situation. So I want you guys' feedback on what you think it is. Look at the video, look at the description, the link. Get back at me. And until then, you guys been counterpunched. Peace.